G'day guys and gal. A lot of people, including myself, don't really rate Abaddon that highly as the supposed big bad of the setting, not because he is inherently a bad character, but he is supposed to be the successor of Horus, a being that was more powerful than the Emperor, yet Abaddon lost the melee fight to an Eldar wizard. He's yet to prove his worth against someone like Guilliman, and he mostly relies on his hectic sword. Not to mention there are significantly more powerful chaos beings that could fill the role in Abaddon's stead. But all of this would be excusable if Abaddon's motivations were awesome, if what drove him to be the big bad was so respectable that it almost makes you root for him. But to most people, his motivations aren't even clear. Yeah, sure, he wants to kill the Imperium, but why, and what does he want to do if he manages to succeed? Before we get started, some time ago I launched my no-nonsense, science-backed natural supplement range, with the idea of removing a lot of the confusion, cost, guesswork, and inconvenience from using supplements by combining synergistic ingredients together. Since then, the feedback has been incredible, whether it be fixing people's blood work and biomarkers, improving how they feel, or healing their livers. But as to not overwhelm you with a supplement lore dump, let's just focus on the ultimate testosterone booster today, our most popular supplement by far. I have no interest in snake oil. We only incorporated ingredients that were scientifically proven to increase testosterone. And Acyclovir pytharum increases your LH and enhances steroidogenesis, boosting testosterone. Tonkat Ali reduces SHB and cortisol, boosting total and free testosterone, in some men by up to 37%. Vedosia agressus mimics LH activity, directly boosting testosterone, with Andrew Huberman saying he has seen it increase testosterone by 200 or more points. Shilajit boosts testicular activity and has been shown to increase free and total test by up to 20%. Coleus foscoli enhances LH levels, showing a modest increase in free testosterone, but incredible gains in lean mass and large reductions in body fat. Horny goatweed, although its effects on test levels is minor, it notably boosts libido and sexual activity. Boron reduces SHBG and estrogen, which boosts free testosterone, whilst zinc, magnesium, and vitamin D are all essential minerals for healthy testosterone production. So we saw all of this data and said fuck it, and just put it all together in the one supplement, even testing it on various people. One test subject saw a massive 50% increase in total and free testosterone, and the best part, it's completely natural. You could take this and enter into a tested sport or bodybuilding competition, with none of the side effects of injecting testosterone. If you're low energy, low motivation, low libido, or feel like it's hard to put on muscle and lose fat, you probably have low testosterone, and this is the best way to increase it without needing to lift a finger. Use link or code Majorkill for 20% off store-wide. Today we'll go over what Abaddon is actually trying to accomplish and what he wants to do if he actually manages to defeat the Imperium. Let's get into it. Abaddon was always an incredibly dedicated and near single-minded man. If he had an objective, he would do everything in his power to achieve it. He also was a man that had a code. The code didn't necessarily have to be ethical or morally good, but he would do his best to stick to it. He respected warriors and fighting spirits. However, his code was often tested, with Abaddon being found wanting. For example, a huge theme of Abaddon during the heresy is rejecting chaos, wishing to be free of its taint and influence, as he saw how much it had taken from Horus. Control, not controlled, was his favorite thing to say. So even as the rest of the sons of Horus were losing their marbles and trying to murder fuck the loyalists to death, Abaddon and his company kept their cool, managing to retreat back to the vengeful spirit to help protect Horus from the Emperor's strike team. Now this is where Abaddon's code seemed to fizzle out. Abaddon will try to do things without Chaos's fist stuck up his ass, and he'll be very self-righteous about it. But as soon as things stop going to plan, he will drink that fucking Kool-Aid. For example, when Valdor and his custodies were tearing through Abaddon's men trying to reach the Emperor and Horus, Abby was like, nah, we have the numbers, the firepower, and the girth, we got this. But then he saw Valdor tank a chainsaw through the stomach and get pinned by 3 Terminators before simply shrugging them off and butchering them, whilst another custodian twisted a Terminator's head off like a toy. And then he was like, okay fine Erebus, you can do your bullshit hacks, and then used the warp to cheat. Case in point, Abaddon would rather achieve his objective than die for what he believes in. That was always the fundamental issue with Abaddon. He claimed to be above it all, control not controlled, uses chaos as a tool but has his own free will, but once you're submerged in it, it's not your free will. The Chaos Gods allow Abaddon a lot of flexibility as their pawn because he is most effective when he's in the driver's seat. He is motivated by a sense of freedom and is able to enact their will more effectively. But you better fucking believe it that on a whim they could turn him into a chaos spawn. He didn't just nearly become the size of a Primarch because he was taking the Natty Plus ultimate testosterone booster, which you know he definitely is. It's because the warp has suffused his being. I also do take a bit of issue with how much Abaddon relies on his demon sword. It's so fucking overpowered. During one of the Black Crusades, he was besieging an imperial fortress that was impregnable. His men were being butchered and he didn't have the siege expertise of Perturabo to figure out how to conquer it. So he just stabbed his demon sword into the walls and the fortress was cracked open. Another example is Abaddon's fight with Marnius Calgo on Vigilus. It could have been a great opportunity to show off his prowess and warrior spirit. Instead he got baited into the duel, which left the vengeful spirit exposed and seriously damaged, with Abaddon only winning the duel because his sword cut through Calgar's gauntlet of Ultramar, which doesn't make much sense since the gauntlets were a relic weapon famous for their invulnerability, like they couldn't even be cut open and investigated by scientists because the metal was supernaturally durable. Now compare Abaddon to Sigismund, who wasn't a psycho or wasn't blessed by chaos. He was just weaponized weaponized autism incarnate and dedicated his entire life to his skill and craft. Even when he was given the Black Sword as a power boost, it didn't make him overpowered, it just gave him a weapon that could keep up with him and allow him to block and parry demon weapons without shattering. I'm not sure why the writers don't just let Abaddon show off his skill as a warrior without relying on his sword, but maybe it's actually a 4D chess move and the writers want us to see Abaddon as this delusional fool who thinks he is using chaos but chaos is actually using him, who thinks he is a warrior with a code but instead just uses chaos as a crutch, thus making the story of Abaddon somewhat a tragic one. But enough ranting. What, in Abaddon's opinion, is he trying to achieve? What is his overall goal, and what happens if he achieves it? Well, Abaddon wants to supplant the Emperor as the master of mankind and rule with a new policy. The strong rule the weak, they do not serve them. A huge issue the traitorous Astartes had with the Imperium was that they were the ones who bled and died to build the Imperium, but then flawed, weak, mortal humans would rule over it. They saw themselves as the superior form of the human race, not as a crude warrior side grade. Abaddon still clings to that ideology. He wants Space Marines to rule mankind, in a brutal galaxy that rewards strength and punishes weakness. Now, I do not think Abaddon wants to sit on the throne and tell everyone what to do. He would happily burn Terra, plunge the galaxy into total chaos, and then just enjoy the ride. But there is also a degree of personal vengeance Abaddon wants to achieve against the Imperium for clapping his cheeks during the heresy, but I do think that is secondary. Now, here is Abaddon's issue. No amount of warrior code or martial prowess is going to get him in front of the Emperor, demon sword in hand. If Horus couldn't do it with the full might of the traitor legions and chaos, then no fucking chance Abaddon can. Especially since the Imperium is a lot more fortified against chaos, and there is a ton of other threats like Tyranids to also contend with. So Abaddon instead has just been trying to fuck the galaxy as hard as physically and psychically possible, using the unlubed cock of chaos. Most of the Black Crusades were designed to open up the Great Rift and cause huge amounts of damage. Abaddon would rather drown the galaxy in chaos, find a bunch of overpowered old chaos weapons, and destroy nearly everything, so that by the time he reaches Terra, it isn't a siege, but instead a victory lap. Now, to his credit, he's actually doing a pretty solid job of it. Firstly, he opened the Great Rift, cutting the Imperium in half. Then he initiated the Arcs of Omen campaign alongside Vashtor in order to find the key fragments that could be merged to create a key that could then unlock a door which holds tremendous power. The kind of power Abaddon would need to break Terra. Like, the dude is doing stuff for sure. Most of what he's doing is bleeding the loyalists out in the field, weakening them, gaining power, and then just sort of rinse and repeat until big things happen. Like maybe Guilliman dies or key Imperial worlds fall. Now let's say Abaddon weakens the Imperium, kills Guilliman, gets the lion tied up in Imperium Nihilus, and is able to make it to the throne world and slay the Emperor, causing the webway gate under the palace to rip open and demons to flood Terra, turning it into a demon world and more or less achieving victory for chaos. What happens to Abaddon then? Well, more than likely the Chaos Gods will fuck him over extremely hard as some kind of sick joke. Maybe they turn him into a chaos spawn, maybe they force him to sit on the golden throne in a mockery of the Emperor that he slew. They would probably teach him a lesson and get petty revenge for all the times he mocked them and said he was free of their influence and controlled his own destiny. Chaos has a habit of throwing out their toys when they don't need them anymore, especially the toys that are a part of Chaos Undivided. Just look at Be'lakor. He was literally Chaos Jesus and was their favored instrument for countless years, but as soon as they didn't need him anymore and realized that having their own personal demon princes was better, he has been shafted hard and is constantly mocked and fucked with by Chaos for a laugh. But what would Abaddon actually like to have done after winning the Long War if, let's say, the Chaos Gods decide they still want him or don't feel like pulling some sick punishment on him, or if the Chaos actually allow him to win to begin with, since there's a huge theory that Chaos loves this state of unending war and actively sabotages itself if it feels like it's winning too hard. Well, I honestly don't even think Abaddon actually knows. This is a chief example of, oh shit, okay, I didn't actually think I would get this far. He would certainly slay the Emperor, then likely leave Terra as it collapses in on itself and probably creates a new Eye of Terror in the Sol system. Now, whilst Abaddon has stated he wants to make himself the new Emperor and have his Black Legion as the rulers of mankind, I honestly think Abaddon would just continue being a warlord. There would be no peace for him, no retirement, no administrative duties as the ruler of a new empire. The Black Legion would initially swell in power, gaining new members in awe of Abaddon's victory. Maybe they would even stick by him as he strikes out at the last remaining Imperium strongholds, like Ultramar or wherever the Lion is. Maybe Abaddon would call himself Emperor. The galaxy would still have a lot of threats. The Tyranids would rampage unchecked, growing in power, as would the Orcs. I believe Abaddon would be fighting for years to come, but now without the plot armor from Chaos, as his main purpose is now done. He would eventually fight and then die in a probably glorious death, either from an overwhelming Tyranid horde, or some Orcs, or the machinations of the Elder, or maybe just from a Tau railgun fired into his head from 50 kilometers away. Abaddon would embrace his death and feel vindicated, as he always wanted to live and die like a warrior. An Abaddon without eternal war is no Abaddon at all. Now, this does make him a solid character. He does have some clearly defined motives and his warrior code. He is also heavily flawed, which makes him interesting, but I do think we need a juicier big bad at the setting. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then pick up a Natty Plus sub, or all of them. Link or code Majorkill for 20% off. Hit the subscribe button, hit the real subscribe button for more top-notch content. Join the Discord for more memes, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.